Hello, this video is going to be about the honey badgers. The narcissistic abusers' rage, and do they feel bad? Do they regret anything after the way they put you down or treated you? And the answer is no, they don't. See, cluster B personalities, this is why a lot of them are hired to have the positions at work to fire people below them, because they don't have the same kind of conscience as, let's say, you or I do. Empaths. We would probably have a hard time. We would want to give a few more chances. We would want to explain what they were doing wrong. We would realize that they have to put food on the table for their families. And we wouldn't be able to just callously go and fire somebody. But these sorts of cluster B personalities, the alphas, the narcissists, and I'm talking unhealthy alphas. I'm not meaning anybody that's an alpha is a narcissist. That's not what I'm meaning. But the toxic alpha is what I'm referring to. They don't have the same ways of thinking or feeling like we do. They just see something and they figure they have to do it, and that's it. There's no second chance, blah, 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 whatever. So these particular personalities that we are dealing with, that we have been in relationships with, or we were raised by parents that are narcissistic or have NPD, they don't care. They lack that empathy. They don't really show compassion. Even though my brother is the golden child, even growing up, let's say when he broke his collarbone or broke his teeth on a pogo stick or something, or I don't even remember, was it a pogo stick? Yeah, I think so. Anyways, it was me who was showing him compassion, singing in my little girl voice, thinking I could sing in the back seat as my parents brought him to the emergency. And I was trying to just basically cater to him and cradle him, and he was my younger brother. And looking back, I wonder why my mom wasn't the one doing that. And, he's the babied one. He's the golden child, but she lacked that ability to truly show like some affection. I mean, hugs were very cold. And just different. Like, I'm very warm with my niece, and that's not even my daughter. So I'm just totally different. And the way my family is. And yet they will say, I love you 100 times a day if they're talking on the phone, because my brother and my mom are very enmeshed. But it's like, it just doesn't even feel or sound genuine. But again, I mean, he's the golden child, so he's always going to be the one put on a pedestal and so forth. But my mom literally has no sense of guilt for her behaviors towards me, or her raging in public at times, like in a restaurant or walking out of a restaurant and not caring who hears her. Again, she does that to me because I was the scapegoat growing up. She would not be doing that to my brother. He wouldn't put up with her, for one. He would be holding a grudge and so forth. But I allowed it, and I would go out with her the following week for the afternoon of shopping and going out to eat. So they don't really have that conscience. And I can guarantee, based on my own experience with my ex-boyfriend that was a narcissist, he would throw his little digs or rage and stomp around like friggin' Flintstone or King Kong. Sorry, dogs again. So, sorry about that. Anyway, so they're living in the moment. They're raging in the moment. Whatever you did that you might not even be aware that you did or said, or they thought that you said something else, and they heard you wrong, they will just automatically have no control over their reactions to you, and it gives them an excuse to rage and put you down. And there is no guilt. There's literally no guilt. They don't care. They could go to sleep at night. You could be crying next to them. Or I even remember one time my ex did a very cruel thing. It's really hard to even talk about. And it was on my birthday years ago in the very beginning. And I forgot what age I was turning. But I said I didn't even want to think about my birthday, blah, 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 blah. He has me come over, and no card, no gift, no flowers, no anything. And it was just really hurtful. Now, I know that I said I didn't want to think about my birthday previously to the day and whatever, but every female, every male, you like to at least be acknowledged for your birthday. And I started crying. He had no sympathy at all. And he actually got angry with me and got worse. Like he got really, oh, it was just ugly. And I was crying more, but he went to bed. So, God, and just even thinking back to that, like it was beyond hurtful. And I wish that I would have walked away then and never went back through the years. Like I would go back for like a few months and then we'd be off. Go back for a few months, then I get a silent treatment, then he'd reach out later, and then I didn't want to go back, and then there would go 6 months. Like I don't even know at this point. It was just, all I know is there was a lot more off time than on. And like I said in a previous video, it was my soul protecting me. I would run, and I just knew that it didn't feel right. And I always felt bad for him. That's the thing. We have a tendency to feel bad for these narcissists, and we can't do that because we're the ones actually feeling the pain. We're the ones getting the subtle put downs and dealing with their bad behaviors, and they are not feeling bad for us. They're never gonna get it. Okay, I don't care what you try and explain to them. I don't care if you go to therapy. A lot of times I have read, and I told him before he needed therapy, but you know, it got all twisted to me, and I was the one that needed therapy according to him. But I don't care what people say, because I have read that therapy does not really help a narcissist, and they have a way of even charming the therapist where they don't look like the problem, and they're basically minimizing everything that they've ever done, or basically making you look like you're crazy and you're remembering things incorrectly. So therapy, I wouldn't even suggest if you are dealing with a narcissist, a true narcissist, because they won't get it. And I remember even when I was a kid, I knew that my family, looks like I have a bread in my hair, but it's the blinds, the light shining. Anyway, so I remember when I was younger, I knew my family was off, and I knew that everything was toxic. I mean, kids are not stupid, especially when we start going and we start staying the night at other families' houses, and we see how their family interacts, and we see that they might fight, but it's like still a loving family. So you start to compare that with your own toxic household that you grow up in, and you're like, something is really not right here. And I remember asking us if we could go to counseling. I mean, I was a little girl. And so they wanted to do, my parents, they wanted to do like once a week at home counseling with just the family. There was no way we were going to an outside therapist. So I really was so happy thinking, oh my gosh, we're going to get somewhere. Like, I want to be heard, because they never wanted to hear anything. Like, you know, my voice was never heard. And I think that was the whole reason why I was always so shy, and I'm still very shy. I'm more introverted. I mean, I'm friendly and whatever, and people get the wrong idea thinking that I'm outgoing, but I'm really not. Like, I cringe at even going to like a seminar thinking, oh gosh, I hope they don't call on me. Like, yeah, it's just, I'm very shy still. But they tricked me. We never had one family meeting. So, and the toxicity and the violence and just like the battlefield of growing up continued, and it got worse through the years. And I can honestly answer your question if you are someone that has dealt with a narcissistic family, an abusive family, or you are currently and you're wondering if they're ever going to get it. I can tell you it was my dad's deathbed when he finally had a little bit of guilt. And not that I would wish that on anybody, to have guilt as they are transitioning, out of this life. So, but basically that's what happened. Like, I would never have probably seen that kind of, and we're not talking a lot of guilt, okay? We're talking a little bit of guilt. I would have never even seen that though, I don't think, if he wasn't passing away. So when I say if you have toxic parents and narcissistic parents, to go low or no contact, preferably no contact, I'm doing that, I'm advising that for your own good, because it doesn't change. As they age, they get even worse. So, and their rages get worse. So I wouldn't advise trying to be there as like this person in the family that's trying to keep everybody together, because I played that role for a long time. I don't speak to my brother because of his violence, and that's a whole other video. But, and again, he's the golden child. He is full-blown narcissistic, very short fuse, argues with everybody. And they don't change. He's in his early 40s and very toxic, even with his girlfriends, and cheating on them and everything. So they don't change. And look who he had as role models, my parents. So for instance, I went the complete opposite of how I grew up. I need my peace. I love to laugh. I love to be around people that make me happy. Again, all the reason why I feel like I used to run so much away from the ex or not go back. So like if he left me and then tried to come back, I wouldn't go back. Like it was just this constant tug of war thing. And I really feel like, based on my childhood, I know that a lot of people tend to go into these relationships because of how they were raised. And yeah, I think that's what probably seemed familiar to me as well, that up and down emotional feeling of being in that relationship with him. But I also do feel like I might have been attracted to that for a while, or the familiarity of it. But I also knew like this is not bringing me peace. So I would actually really enjoy those times apart. And yeah, he would cross my mind. And yeah, sometimes I would miss him. And yeah, sometimes I really felt like I loved him like no other, and this and that. But when I look at like old journals, it tells everything. I was so miserable when I was with him, and the raging that he would do sometimes. And this is a guy that comes off as very calm out in public, but he, behind closed doors, when he would rage, I think that people would be shocked. And we get to see that behind closed doors with them. We get to see their mask come off. And you know that if you were raised with narcissistic parents, they want everything to be all smiles when the family gets there for a holiday, or when you're out in public somewhere. They don't want you to repeat something that might have happened at home. Like everything has to look like you guys are this perfect family, when we all know, no. It's not a perfect family. It's very toxic. So if you are somebody still living with parents, like I don't know what age you are, but if you're still living with your parents, get out, go stay with a family member, see if you could go stay with a friend and their parents. The sooner the better. Whatever you can do to break away. That's another thing. Like, I wish that I could have just broken away from my family. I was very attached. I really, really loved them. And I had grandparents that asked me to move in with them because I think my cousin that had stayed with us for a few months, I think he witnessed stuff that my dad was doing to me with arguing and maybe even something physical. I don't really remember on that. He might have a better memory of that. But I just remember soon after that is when my grandparents asked me to come live with them. And I was being loyal to my parents and didn't want anybody to know. And I was always taught not to tell my mom's business. But her business was ultimately affecting me by being physically abused, being verbally abused, psychologically abused. And she would be a queen at giving silent treatment. So when my ex, throughout my later life, when I had met the ex narcissist, when he started doing the silent treatments, he knew already how much that hurt. I had already explained that, and he did it all the time. So why did he pick that form of abuse? Number one, that's one of the worst ways they can abuse us, is giving a psychological mental abuse tactic like that, the silent treatment. But number two, he knew exactly what would weaken me emotionally, and it worked. So again, if you're wondering if they regret it, they never regret it. And who cares really what they regret when it's at the end of their life, when there is no way to change it anymore. It's over. It's too late. They don't care up until that point. I've read people's stories on Quora, I think, or Reddit, I can't remember, where their family, even on their dying day, couldn't stand their scapegoat. So I can't even say that all of them on their deathbed will finally come to a moment of clarity that they were a bit abusive or a lot abusive. No, there's no guarantee. So what are you going to do? Keep wasting your life thinking that they have regret? Hey, no, you can't. You got to do what's best for you. And what is best for you, trust me, is going no contact and moving on to your life, living your best life, as they always say. It's so true. They don't want to really see you thrive. So that's the best thing that you can do for yourself, is thrive. Don't let them know anything about you. And if they hear it through the grapevine that you are thriving, then so be it. Let it aggravate them, whatever, but get away from the toxic energy, because toxic energy is definitely something that will affect you. So even if you're just hearing it, that somebody's saying, oh, your mom or your dad or your ex, whatever, you don't even want to hear it. Just kindly, politely tell people, I'm sorry, I'm not interested anymore in knowing anything about them. And how's your day and how's everything else going? And just change the subject. You don't want to know any information. It will just stay on your mind, and that's not what you want. Anyways, I hope that answered your questions. If they feel guilt and remorse, no. And you shouldn't either. You shouldn't feel guilty for leaving, and you shouldn't feel guilty for giving up, because that was another thing in my relationship. I just didn't want to give up. So eventually I'd be like, you know what? I would say these things when times were good, like, I'm not going to ever abandon you. And he's remembering that. He's holding on to that. He's trying for all these months. And he's still like trying to joke around and email or whatever. And was he that bad? He's done this for me. He's brought me to this beautiful dinner. And I would feel bad. And I would feel like, you know what? I don't want to be the one to give up. Like, this might be able to change. It might be able to work. Guess what? It didn't. It didn't. So, and you've read enough now. If you're on this this journey trying to learn more about narcissism, then you're reading comments and you're learning that these people don't change. And us that are on the ones of us that are still with these people, or getting through the abuse, trying to heal, it still didn't work out. So the sooner you cut the ties, the better.